Love. The word echoed from the computer screen like a gunshot to the chest. There I was, staring at an unfamiliar woman who had just called my husband love during a video call. Her confident smile vanished the instant I turned on the camera and she saw me. Panic took over her face, the kind of panic you see in someone who just got caught red-handed. "Who are you?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. She stammered, tried to make up an excuse about being just a business partner of John's, a workplace joke.
Lies.
All lies. No one saves a business partner's contact with a cute nickname, and no one calls a coworker love with that kind of intimacy. My world fell apart in seconds, but something inside me stayed firm. I wasn't going to be the wife who pretended she didn't see anything. If John was cheating on me, he was about to find out he chose the wrong woman to deceive. But let me tell you how it all started, how we reached this moment that would change our lives forever. Until that afternoon, my life was what most would call stable. John and I had our routine in Denver, our home, our plans. I trusted him completely, that kind of blind trust you have when you think you've known someone for years. It never crossed my mind that something might be wrong in our peaceful routine. It was just another ordinary afternoon when I decided to do a thorough cleaning of our home office. John used that space to work, and I used it to study. Over time, papers piled up, old notes became mountains, and the mess took over everything. I decided to tidy things up while he was out. I was sorting through documents and organizing drawers when I heard that familiar sound, a video call coming in. His computer was on the desk, and the notification was flashing insistently on the screen. What really caught my attention was the contact name, a cute nickname. Curiosity got the best of me. Without thinking much about the consequences, I clicked to answer the call. After all, it could be work, something important that couldn't wait. John often received professional calls at home. The screen lit up, and a woman appeared. Blonde, well-dressed, with that kind of smile that suggests closeness and familiarity. She looked straight at the camera, clearly expecting to see John, but found my surprised eyes instead. And then, with the most devastating naturalness in the world, she said, "Hey, love. How was your day?" Love. She called my husband love. Time came to a complete stop. My heart raced, but my brain froze for a few seconds. Who was this woman? Why was she talking to John with such intimacy? And most of all, how long had this been happening right under my nose? The initial shock paralyzed me. I stood there like a statue, staring at that stranger speaking to my husband, as if they were a couple. But something inside me quickly pulled itself together. Maybe it was survival instinct, or simply the urgent need to understand what the hell was going on. Firmly, though still stunned, I turned on my camera. The effect was devastating and immediate. The woman's radiant, confident smile vanished, as if someone had flipped a switch. Her face tensed, her eyes widened in pure surprise, and for the first time in the conversation, she seemed truly lost and flustered. "Who are you?" I asked, making a superhuman effort to keep my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. She stuttered for a few long seconds, clearly trying to process the unexpected situation and find a way out. Then, as if she had found an emergency exit, she managed to pull herself together slightly and tried to smile again. "Oh, sorry for the misunderstanding," she said in a hesitant voice. I'm just John's business partner. It was just an inside joke, you know? We always joke like that at the office. Nothing serious. Business partner. Office joke. The words sounded completely hollow and fabricated in that moment. Anyone with two functioning brain cells would know that no one calls a work partner love with that intimate and natural tone. And more importantly, no one panics that much when caught in an alleged harmless joke. But I decided to play along, controlling my anger and pretending to believe her blatant lie. "Oh, I see," I replied, forcing a smile that probably looked more like a grimace. "What an interesting joke you two have. John never mentioned he had that kind of closeness with his business partners." She laughed nervously, clearly relieved that I had apparently bought her ridiculous explanation. "Yeah, we've worked together for a while and ended up getting pretty close. Sorry if I scared you with our silly little joke. No worries, I lied boldly, maintaining the forced smile. I was just curious, that's all. What's your full name? For a split second, she visibly hesitated, as if she was quickly deciding whether to give her real name or make something up on the spot. Sarah, she finally replied, and something in her tone told me that at least that part was true.
Sarah.
Now I had a real name to put to the face that had just shattered my trust in my marriage. And I was absolutely sure she was lying about everything, except maybe her name. Well, Sarah, I'm going to end the call now since John's not home. Sure. No problem. Tell him I tried to reach him, okay? The call ended abruptly, and I was completely alone in the office, staring at the now black screen of the computer. My mind began methodically processing what I had just witnessed. John had a mistress. There was no other logical explanation. No one saves a business partner under a nickname like that, and no one answers a professional call expecting to hear love in that affectionate, familiar tone. And most importantly, no one panics that much when caught in an alleged harmless office joke. The cruel reality was right in front of me, impossible to deny or rationalize. Sarah tried to lie, but Bella wasn't naive. What did you think of her reaction? The rest of the afternoon went by in a blur. I tried to focus on house chores, but my mind kept going back to that scene. "Hey, love," echoed in my head like a broken record. When I heard the key turning in the lock, my stomach clenched. John walked into the house with his usual smile, tossed his keys on the table, and greeted me as he always did. "Hey, Bella. How was your day?"
Bella.
He called me Bella, but to Sarah it was love on video calls. Interesting. It was interesting, I replied, watching every micro-expression on his face. John didn't pick up on the tone. He walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, grabbed a beer. The same routine as always, as if nothing in the world had changed. But for me, everything had. I waited until he settled on the couch, waiting for the right moment. I didn't want to sound hysterical or paranoid. I needed to see his reaction, read between the lines. "John," I began, sitting beside him. "Something strange happened today." He took a sip of his beer, eyes glued to the TV. What was it?" "Someone called you on the office computer. A woman named Sarah." The beer froze midair, halfway to his lips. For a split second, I saw something flash in his eyes. Panic, recognition, guilt. But he recovered quickly. "Sarah," he repeated, like he was trying to place the name. "Oh, probably someone from the office. What did she want?" Liar. The name left his lips with far too much familiarity for someone who was trying to remember. "She called you love, John." There it was. The bomb had been dropped. John nearly choked on his beer, let out a nervous, forced laugh that wouldn't fool a child. "Love," he repeated, laughing louder. "Must have been a misunderstanding, Bella. You know how people talk sometimes, especially on the phone?" It wasn't a phone call. It was a video call. The laughter died instantly. John set the beer down on the table, a little too firmly. "Well, whatever it was, it had to be a huge misunderstanding. Sarah's just an old friend, a partner on a few projects. You're making a big deal out of nothing." Old friend. Project partner. The same lies she had used almost word for word. Interesting how cheaters think alike. "What kind of projects?" I pressed. "Consulting projects? Boring work stuff you wouldn't care about." "Since when do you do consulting with old friends who call you love on video calls?" John sighed and ran a hand through his hair, that gesture he always did when he was nervous. "Bella, you're overreacting. Sarah's just a very outgoing person, a little dramatic. She calls everyone love. Honey, it's just how she is. It doesn't mean anything." "Everyone. Then why did she panic when she saw me?" John opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He was clearly searching for a plausible lie and couldn't find one. She probably felt awkward because she didn't know who you were. I introduced myself as your wife. That only made her more uncomfortable. "Bella," he tried to pull me closer, but I pulled away. "Why are you asking these questions? Since when don't you trust me?" The classic reversal. Turn the victim into the villain. Since today, when I saw my husband being called love by a stranger who panicked at the sight of me. You're being paranoid. I'm being realistic. John stood up and began pacing across the living room. He was visibly agitated, and that only confirmed my suspicions. I can't believe we're having this conversation over a ridiculous misunderstanding. Sarah is just a friend, Bella. Period. He stopped pacing and looked at me with a mix of frustration and desperation. What do you want me to say, Bella? That I'm cheating on you with Sarah? That we're having some secret affair? Is that what you want to hear? I want to hear the truth. I already told you the truth. She's a friend, a work partner, and you're turning this into some crazy conspiracy. But I could see right through his lies. The nervousness, the contradictions, the way he avoided eye contact whenever he mentioned Sarah. Everything screamed guilt. All right, John, I said finally, standing up. If you say she's just a friend, I believe you. He seemed relieved, but I wasn't done. But if I find out you're lying, I let the sentence hang in the air, heavy with silent threat. John came closer, tried to hug me again. You're not going to find anything, because there's nothing to find. Trust me, Bella. Trust him. After so many lies in a single conversation, he still had the audacity to ask for trust. I let him hug me, but my heart was closed. The image of the woman calling him love stayed vivid in my mind like a permanent tattoo. His behavior only confirmed what I already knew. Something was very wrong. What had once been mere suspicion was now an unstoppable drive to uncover the whole truth. John could lie all he wanted. I wouldn't let the matter drop. Not anymore. Torn between the pain of betrayal and a steely determination to uncover everything, I made a silent decision. I was going to get to the bottom of this story, no matter the cost. Let us know what city you're following this revenge story from. The next morning, John announced he'd need to travel for work for a few days. Phoenix, Arizona. Important business that couldn't wait. He kissed my forehead the way he always did before a trip, grabbed his suitcase, and walked out the door with that confident smile of someone who believes he just dodged a bullet. As soon as he pulled out of the driveway, I had the phone in my hand. It wasn't hard to find a tech expert. Denver is full of them. I called 3 different ones before finding someone who could come the same day. I explained the situation carefully, without going into unnecessary details, just that I needed to trace the origin of a specific call received on our home computer. Marcus, the technician, arrived 2 hours later. A young guy, full of piercings and tattoos, carrying a backpack stuffed with equipment I didn't even recognize. So, you want to know where this call came from? He asked, already connecting some devices to John's computer. Exactly. Name, address, any information you can find. I can get that, but it'll take a few days. I need to dig into hidden data, network logs, IP history. These things leave traces, but you need to know where to look. How long? 3, maybe 4 days tops. Perfect. John would be gone for a week. And how much? $500. I paid in cash on the spot. Marcus worked on the computer for almost 2 hours, installing software, copying files, doing things I didn't understand, but he clearly did. All set, he finally said, disconnecting his gear. I'll analyze all this in my lab. I'll call you in a few days with the results. After he left, I was alone again in a house that suddenly felt larger and quieter. The next few hours dragged by like days. I tried to distract myself with work, TV, anything, but my mind kept spinning with possibilities. How long had John been lying? How many work trips were actually secret meetings with Sarah? How many nights had he come home pretending to be the perfect husband after being with another woman? On the second day, Marcus called. I've got some preliminary info. The call definitely came from a residential address, not a commercial one. Want me to keep digging? Keep going. On the third day, he called again. I've got more details. The connection is from a house in Lakewood. Still narrowing down the exact address. Lakewood. Just 20 minutes from home. On the fourth day, Marcus had everything and gave me the address. The call came from a computer registered to that address, he said over the phone. I even have a Google Street View photo of the house if you want it. Now I had her full name and address. Solid information that turned my suspicions into absolute certainty. Email me everything, I asked. It's already in your inbox. I opened the email immediately. There it was, full name, address, even an aerial view of the house. A small, well-kept house with a front yard and a silver Honda Civic in the driveway. With that information in hand, a cold determination took over me. I told no one, not my sister, not my best friend. I kept the pain and the anger inside, planning every move like a strategist. John would be back from his trip in 2 days. But I wasn't going to wait. I needed to face Sarah Mitchell face-to-face before John returned, and before they had the chance to come up with more lies. I spent the rest of the day planning the confrontation. How to approach her. What to say. How to make sure she told the truth. I decided surprise would be my best weapon. Showing up unannounced, giving her no time to prepare or come up with excuses. The next morning, I woke up with my heart racing but my face set like stone. I showered, dressed carefully, not too put together, but not sloppy either. I wanted to look serious, determined, like a woman who wasn't there to play games. I grabbed my car keys and left the house without hesitation. 20 minutes later, I was parked in front of the house, staring at the place where my marriage had been shattered by intimate video calls. The Honda Civic was in the driveway. Sarah was home. I took a deep breath, got out of the car, and walked to the front door. My heart was pounding like a drum, but my resolve was unshakable. It was time to look into the eyes of the woman who had called my husband love and find out exactly what had been happening behind my back. I knocked 3 times, firm and decisive. Not loud enough to seem aggressive, but strong enough to make it clear I wasn't there for small talk. I heard footsteps on the other side, a pause, probably her looking through the peephole, and then the sound of the lock turning. Sarah opened the door, wearing a pink fluffy bathrobe and slippers. Her hair was messy, her face bare, clearly just out of bed. Very different from the polished, smiling woman from the video call. For a second, she didn't recognize me. Then it clicked. Her face went pale. Her eyes widened, mouth slightly open, and she instinctively clutched her robe tighter, as if trying to hide behind it. "You," was all she managed to say. "Me," I confirmed, keeping my voice calm and controlled. "Sarah Mitchell, right?" She tried to compose herself, squared her shoulders, tried to act firm, but one look from me was enough to completely dismantle her. All that fake confidence from the video call vanished. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice trembling.
To talk.
"We can do it here at the door for all the neighbors to see, or you can invite me in." Sarah glanced around quickly, noticing that some neighbors were already peeking through their windows. The last thing she wanted was a public scene. "Come in," she mumbled, stepping aside. The house was small but nicely decorated. Beige sofa, glass coffee table, a few plants on the windowsills. Photos of Sarah on trips, with friends, fake smiles framed everywhere. I noticed there were no family photos or anything that suggested a serious relationship. I sat on the couch without being invited, crossed my legs, and stared directly at her. Sarah remained standing, clearly uncomfortable, unsure whether to sit or be ready to flee. So, I began, keeping my tone conversational. "Let's try this again. Who are you to John?" "I already explained in the call," she started, but I cut her off with a gesture. "You lied on the call. Now I'm here, in your house, and I know your full name and address. I think it's time for the truth, don't you?" Sarah finally sat on the armchair across from me, but perched on the edge, like she might run at any moment. "I don't know what you want to hear. The truth, Sarah. It's really that simple." She looked down at her hands, clearly struggling between lying again or confessing everything. "Look, I tried a different approach. I didn't come here to cause a scene. I'm not here to attack you or scream. I came to understand what's going on. If you keep lying, I'll leave and deal with this another way. But if you tell me the truth, we can have a civil conversation." Something in my tone, maybe the forced calm, maybe the veiled threat, made her lift her eyes and look at me for the first time since I'd entered. "Civil," she repeated, almost sarcastically. "Civil," I confirmed, "at least on my part." Sarah took a deep breath, like she was about to jump off a cliff. John and we've been together for 8 months. 8 months. 8 months of lies, of work trips, of fake goodnight kisses, of hollow I love yous. Together how? I pressed, though I already knew the answer. Together. Dating. In a relationship. Did he tell you he's married? She bit her lower lip. He did. And you still went along with it? He said you two were separating. That it was just a matter of time before the divorce. Lie number 1000 from John. I hadn't even dreamed of separation until 3 days ago. What else did he tell you about me? That you didn't get along anymore. That you slept in separate bedrooms. That you knew about his relationship with me but pretended not to. Each lie was a stab in the heart. John had built an alternate version of our life to justify his betrayal. Separate bedrooms. We shared the same bed every night. Didn't get along, I still made him dinner every day. I knew but pretended not to until 3 days ago. I had no clue. How often does he come here? 2-3 times a week. And do you meet anywhere else? Hotels sometimes. When he's traveling for work. Her sarcastic air quotes told me she also knew the trips were a lie. Does he give you money? Sarah hesitated. He helps me with some bills. Of course. John funding his mistress with the money that was supposed to be ours. Sarah, I said, leaning forward, I need you to do something. What? Call John here. Now. Don't tell him I'm here. Just say you need to see him urgently. Her face went even paler. I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. Why? Because it's time for him to stop lying to both of us. Sarah stared at me for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether I was insane or just determined. Apparently, she concluded I was both. And if I refuse? Then I'll leave, hire a private investigator, gather every piece of evidence I can, and make sure John loses everything in the divorce, including the ability to pay for your hotel dates. She got the message, picked up her phone with trembling hands. What do I say? Tell him you need to see him urgently, that it's important. Don't give details. Sarah dialed the number with visibly shaking fingers. She put it on speaker without me asking, probably wanted me to hear it too. Hey, love. John's familiar voice echoed through the small living room. Love. There was that word again. John, can you come over? Now. Now? I'm in the middle of a meeting. It's urgent. He was probably weighing whether it was an emergency or just his mistress being needy. Is everything okay? Are you okay? I'm fine, but I need to see you. Please. All right. I'm leaving now. I'll be there in an hour. Love you, she said, looking straight at me. Love you too. See you soon. The call ended. We sat in silence for a few seconds. Done, Sarah said, putting the phone away. He's on his way. Great. Now we wait. An hour later, we heard the familiar sound of John's car pulling into the driveway. Sarah looked at me with panic in her eyes, as if she had suddenly realized the magnitude of what was about to happen. Where do I sit? She whispered, like John could hear us through the walls. On the couch with me, I replied calmly. And act normal. Normal? How am I supposed to act normal? Pretend we're just having a chat between friends. Footsteps approached the door. Sarah tried to smooth her hair quickly, but her hands were shaking so much, she only made it worse. The key turned in the lock. John walked in with that smile I knew so well, the smile of someone arriving for another secret, pleasurable rendezvous. He didn't even glance fully into the room at first. He was busy closing the door and taking off his coat. Hey, beautiful. What's the URG? The words died in his mouth when his eyes finally registered the room. There I was, sitting comfortably on the mistress's couch, staring straight at him with an expression that could freeze hell. John's face went completely pale in an instant. His coat slipped from his hands and hit the floor. His mouth opened and closed several times, like a fish out of water, but no sound came out. Surprise, I said with the sweetest sarcasm I could muster. John stood there frozen, looking from me to Sarah and back again, as if trying to figure out whether this was real or some bizarre nightmare. Total confusion clouded his face. Bella, how did you, who told? What is going on here? How did I find out? I finished his sentence. I guessed. Sarah remained completely still next to me, probably praying for the ground to open up and swallow her whole. John finally processed the situation and stumbled over his words. This isn't what it looks like. You two don't understand. There's an explanation for all this. Oh, really? Fascinating. I'm dying to hear how you're going to explain being here, at your work friend's house, after telling me you were in Phoenix. Phoenix, Sarah murmured, looking at John with confusion. You said you were in meetings here in Denver. Oh, how delightful. He was lying to his mistress too. John, I continued, still with an absurdly calm tone. Why don't you take a seat? I think the three of us need to have a little chat. He just stood there, looking like a deer caught in headlights. The shock was written all over his face. Sit down, John, I repeated, this time with a tone that didn't allow for refusal. He dragged himself to the armchair Sarah had been sitting in earlier, moving like he was underwater. He sat right on the edge, just like she had. So, I began, crossing my legs and settling more comfortably on the couch. Let's clear a few things up. Sarah here told me you two have been dating for 8 months. Confirm or deny? John looked at Sarah with a mix of anger and betrayal on his face, as if she'd broken some secret pact between them. Sarah, why would you? It's a simple question, John. Confirm or deny? Silence crushing. Sarah, I turned to her. Tell John what you told me about our marriage situation. Sarah almost whispered. He said you two were separating, that you slept in separate rooms, that it was just a matter of time. Interesting, I commented, still keeping that conversational tone that was clearly driving John insane. Because I slept in the same bed with him last night.
And the night before.
And every night for the past 8 months. John closed his eyes, like he could make the whole thing disappear. And you, John, I turned to him again. Did you tell Sarah that I knew about your relationship and just pretended not to see it? He opened his eyes but couldn't look at me. He just gave a barely noticeable nod. Speak, John. Did you use that excuse or not? Maybe I gave the impression the situation was different. You lied, I corrected. The word is lied. To her and to me. Sarah was starting to realize she'd been used just as much as I had. Her face showed a mix of humiliation and growing anger. John, she said, her voice firmer now, you swore your wife knew everything. It was complicated, Sarah. You told me she knew. Sarah was clearly angry now. You made me an accomplice in an affair, thinking it was just that it was different. How funny, I observed. Looks like you deceived us both. What an impressive talent. John finally snapped. Enough.
Fine.
Yes, I lied to both of you. I'm cheating on you, Bella, and I made up stories for Sarah about our situation. You want me to admit I'm an idiot? That I screwed everything up? Fine, I admit it. Actually, I replied with deadly calm. I want you to pack your things from our house and get out of my life. What are you talking about? You're moving out.
Today.
And you're not getting anything in the divorce. Bella, this is crazy. Crazy was you thinking you could keep lying to me forever. Sarah was looking at John as if she were seeing a stranger. 8 months of lies, she murmured. For both of us, I confirmed. John stood up abruptly and began pacing across the small room. You two have lost your minds. You can't just decide my life like this. I'm not deciding anything, I replied. You decided when you chose to cheat on your marriage. I'm just informing you of the consequences. And I, said Sarah, standing up as well, want you out of my life too. John stopped pacing and looked at her, utterly desperate. Sarah, don't say that. You know it was different between us. Don't touch me, she pulled away as he tried to get closer. You used me, made me believe I wasn't destroying a marriage. You don't understand. There's something special between the three of us. What followed was so heavy, it could have been sliced with a knife. Sarah and I looked at each other, and for the first time since I'd sat on that couch, I almost smiled. Something special between the three of us? I repeated, disbelief coloring my voice. How romantic. You know it's true. It's pathetic, I corrected. Now grab your things and get out. Of my house and of her life. John looked from one to the other, searching for any sign he could turn the situation around. He found none. So that's it? 8 years of marriage tossed out like this. You threw it out 8 months ago, John. I'm just taking out the trash. John arrived smiling and left shattered. Which part did you like best? A few days later, John returned to our house. No longer as a husband, but as a stranger coming to retrieve the wreckage of the life he'd blown up himself. I was prepared, had changed the locks, but left a few boxes in the garage with his essentials. When he showed up at the door, there was a look in his eyes that only true regret can produce. He was no longer the confident man who lied with ease, but someone who had finally understood the magnitude of what he had lost. Bella, he began, and his voice sounded different, full of a vulnerability I hadn't heard in years. Are you really going through with this? I already did, I replied, keeping the door slightly open. Your things are in the garage. He tried to step inside, but I blocked the way with my body. Just 5 minutes. So we can talk properly. We have nothing to talk about, John. Yes, we do. We have 8 years of history together. That has to mean something. It did. Until you decided 8 months with Sarah mattered more. John ran a hand over his face, a gesture I knew well. He did it when trying to find the right words. But this time, there were no right words. It was a terrible mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. But this can't be the end of us. It can, and it is. Bella, please, his voice cracked. I know I don't deserve it, but you've always been the most generous woman I've known. You've always forgiven. Is forgiving betrayal generosity, John? Or just stupidity? He had no answer. Sarah broke up with me, he said, as if that would change anything. Said she can't even look at me anymore after finding out all the lies. That's too bad. You two are made for each other, two compulsive liars. Don't say that. You know what I felt for you was always real. Real. I let out a bitter laugh. Real was you kissing me goodnight after spending the afternoon with her. Real was telling me you loved me while planning your next secret rendezvous. That's what's real, John. He lowered his head, finally out of arguments. Take your things and leave, I said, starting to close the door. Wait. He put his hand on the door. What if I say I'll fight for us? That I'll prove I've changed? I stopped and looked him in the eye. You'll fight?
How?
By lying less? Cheating more discreetly? What exactly are you going to change, John? Everything. I'll change everything. You can't change what you've already done. And more importantly, you can't change the fact that I'll never trust you again. With time. There isn't enough time in the world for that. John finally understood there was no going back. Reality hit him like a crushing weight. His shoulders slumped, and for the first time in this entire drama, he looked truly defeated.
So, this is it?
You get everything, and I walk away empty-handed. You're not walking away empty-handed, I corrected. You're taking exactly what you brought into this marriage, your infinite capacity to lie. He looked at me for a long moment, as if memorizing my face. Maybe finally realizing this would be the last time he'd see me as the woman he'd loved for 8 years. You're being cruel, Bella. I'm being fair. John slowly nodded, accepting his final defeat. He walked to the garage and silently loaded his boxes into the car. I watched him from the window, seeing the man who had been my husband turn definitively into the past. Before getting in the car, he looked at the house one last time. He didn't wave, didn't shout anything dramatic. He just got in and drove away. In time, the divorce was finalized exactly as I had promised. I kept the house, financial stability, and most importantly, my dignity intact. John's lawyers tried to negotiate, but the evidence of his affair was undeniable. He had broken the marriage contract so clearly that there was no room for argument. I heard through mutual acquaintances that John was living in a small apartment on the other side of town. He had landed a new job. His old one became complicated after a few coworkers learned the story. Sarah, apparently, had moved to another city. She couldn't handle the embarrassment of staying in Denver. As for me, I discovered something surprising. Life without lies is incredibly lighter. I no longer had to decode half-truths, no longer had to pretend to believe pathetic excuses. For the first time in months, I was sleeping well. Some friends said I had been too harsh, that I should have given him a second chance. But they didn't understand. It wasn't just a single betrayal. It was 8 months of daily betrayals. 8 months of lies at breakfast, lies at dinner, lies in bed. John didn't make a mistake. He chose a double life. And I chose a real one. No masks, no lies, no John. And I discovered that wasn't just something. It was everything. Bella got everything. John walked away with nothing. Justice or revenge. Subscribe to the channel for more stories.